it ended up, after many different neurologists, we found one that finally saw the problem on his MRI, and he had a brain lesion in one of his lobes in his MRI. And he's like, it's right here. It's very hard to see. It was missed by 3 other neurologists. And he said, we're going to keep an eye on it, but probably he's going to need brain surgery.
You're listening to the Motherhood Experience, a podcast where you are part of the conversation with moms, for moms, and by moms. Let's jump into this episode with me, your host, Val Kleppen. You heard the familiar theme song. You know it's time for another episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast, and welcome to the show. If you've been listening for a while, I encourage you to leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow us on our social media, but please, I would also encourage you to head to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Get on our email list. You'll hear from me weekly with latest updates, tips, tricks, insights, recipes. Who knows? It's a mad dash grab bag in there every week. It's fun and exciting, and I appreciate you being a part of it. This week's guest, Constance Lewis, has a tremendous story of which we did not even get to hear the entire thing of. And talking to Constance just reminded me, or made me more aware. Every episode we do, every guest we have, we get to hear a piece of their story, but not the entire story. And I so appreciate being given a window into the motherhood journeys of so many unique moms. Constance was no exception. We had a wonderful, heartfelt conversation about all 3 of her kids, especially of her oldest, Miles, with his epilepsy diagnosis, and the road that they have traveled since. Coincidentally enough, even though I don't believe in coincidences, Constance is the second guest I have had in a reasonably short period of time to have a dream about writing a children's book and then waking up and writing the children's book in one day. The second, what? How is that possible? That's amazing. And I'm so thrilled to have her share the story with you in this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe, follow Constance, and you can find her by checking out all of the links in the show notes. I so appreciate you being here today, friend. And without further ado, let's get into this episode right now. Please help me welcome Constance Lewis to the Motherhood Experience podcast. Constance, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm excited to hear your story. It seems like you have an interesting one to share with us. Why don't we start with the ages of kids and the stage of motherhood you're in?
Oh, the stages of motherhood. That's a very big question. I feel like each day the stage changes, doesn't it? Oh, man. I have a 7-year-old, almost 8-year-old son named Miles, and you'll hear more about him later. And I have a 5-year-old daughter, and her name is Mariah, and I have a 2-year-old son named Micah.
Okay, already I love this because there have been a few conversations that we've had with other moms where their children's names all start with the same letter. I am one of those moms.
Yeah. Yes. It wasn't meant to be that way. Honestly, when we had Miles, we just knew that was his name. But then when Mariah was coming, I wanted Zoe. But my son, Miles, was 2, and he kept telling, we didn't know she was going to be a girl. We just didn't find out. We didn't want to find out with her. And I thought it was a boy. I swore I was having a boy my whole life. I was like, I'm having a boy. I'm a boy mom. I'm never going to have a girl, right? So I just had this mindset. And he kept going to school as a 2-year-old telling everybody, my mommy's having a girl. My mommy's having a girl. And I'm like, and everybody would ask me, no, I'm not. We don't know. And I don't think it's a girl. We go. And then it was right around Christmas time, and he loved All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. I mean, the 2-year-old sang this song like his heart depended on it, right? And so he was like, her name is Mariah. And I was like, no, buddy, first of all, we don't know what we're having. And I don't think it's a girl. It might be a boy. And I don't want you to get your hopes up. And I like the name Zoe. And so it was this whole thing, the whole pregnancy. And then she comes out and they're like, it's a girl. And I'm going to say, what? And my husband looks at me and he's like, what are we going to name her? And I was like, Zoe. And he was like, absolutely not. We have to name her Mariah. That is what Miles has been saying. And I was like, I guess so. So then her name was Mariah. And then the third one, we're like, how do we not name him an M name? We have to, right? Don't we have to do this? Like
Right.
one day when he's 12 and he looks and he's like, why is my name not an M name? So
Right.
here we brought Micah.
Oh my goodness. So tell me, is immediately after delivery the best time to tell your wife, no, you're not naming your daughter?
I know, he kind of gave me that look like, I hate to tell you, but our son, he's 2. He dangled that carrot. Like, you can't be mad at me. It's actually like your 2-year-old son that picked this name. And I'm like, okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Even though he secretly wanted the name the whole time too.
Oh my goodness. So when you were growing up, do you have other siblings and where do you fall in birth order?
So I'm the oldest, and I have a younger brother, and that's it. So there's just 2 of
Okay.
us. Yeah. And my husband
Okay.
is 3, so they're all boys. So yeah, we always wanted I say a gaggle of kids, which is funny, but with infertility and other stuff, we got 3, and we're just so blessed and happy that we got that number. And
Okay.
yeah, and stage of motherhood am I in? I'm in the in between elementary school, and then I still have that 2-year-old running around, right? So still that napping schedule, but then I'm like, okay, this is 2nd grade math. Like what are you doing? I think that's my stage. I go back and forth from this one to that one. So
Right. Right. When you became a mother, was it everything you anticipated it would be, or did it
oh,
totally rock your world?
it rocked my world. It totally rocked my world. And I actually have a chapter in a postpartum book about this, actually, because I historically am a neonatal intensive care unit nurse, a lactation nurse, a childbirth educator. So I know everything almost about babies, right? How to breastfeed them, how to change their diaper, how to give them a bath. And so I'm like, I got this. Like, I totally got this. And my infertility journey kind of threw me off. It took 6 years to get there. So I had a little bit of a big doubt in motherhood actually leading into that. So I feel like that doubt kind of crept in. And then once this baby came, it was like, what do I do with this thing? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
totally lost all my mom confidence in what I was doing. And it rocked my world because I thought that I was going to know everything and do everything, and being the nurse. And it changed my life. And I went through a very dark time, actually, of postpartum depression and anxiety, mostly anxiety, severe anxiety, where I needed intervention and help. And, I wrote about it in this book, a little section of the book for postpartum mommies, just of what I went through and how I got out of it. And it was surprising to me. And, everybody kept saying, oh, you're such a good mom and you're such a good mom. And I'm just like, am I though? Am I, so it was a lot, and it took a lot for me to really find myself again in that first baby. And luckily, I did a lot of the work. I did a lot of the personal work, and I looked inward, and I really tried hard to prevent that from happening with the other pregnancies and babies as they came along. And so that's why I do what I do now and help women through it, because I just feel like you never know what you're going to act like or feel, or you know what I mean? When you have a baby, you don't know what's going to happen and how you're going to be.
Yeah. Did you return to work as a nurse after Miles, and did it change how you approached your nursing?
So good question. I was a nurse, and then I became a women's health nurse practitioner. So essentially I was a women's health nurse practitioner I was actually going to school, getting my women's health NP when I learned about my infertility diagnosis. While I was going to school, I was learning about infertility. So it was wild. And I learned everything I could know about it, to help other people as well. And so when I had Miles, I always said, I'm not a stay-at-home mom. I'll never be a stay-at-home mom. I could just never do that. I love my job. I love my work. And so I had this, thought in my head, okay, once Miles is 6 months, I'm going to go back to work. And I worked in a private OBGYN office. And I did. I went back to work, and, I pumped and worked, and I only worked 3 days a week, but still I was working, and we had a babysitter for our little Miles. And I remember thinking that work was everything for me. And it was like, everything was a big deal about work, like getting my work done and being on time. And once I had Miles, I had a different perspective. I still loved my job, and I felt I wanted to be professional and responsible, but I also felt like there was so much more, and I didn't have to live in that state. And I found a little more of a balance of the home life in that instance.
Yeah, it's amazing how your priorities shift even when you are determined and have your mindset this is how it's going to be.
Yeah, and it changed how I treated the moms as well. I mean, I'm a very kind healthcare professional, but once I had a baby and went, I was working with women who were pregnant and having babies every day of my life, and now I understood when I had a woman come into the office in tears with her newborn or breastfeeding challenges or she got mastitis. So I actually really understood to my core at that point as well. So it truly helped me in my job as well.
Yeah. You know, you said mastitis.
Yeah.
My chest started hurting.
I know.
Literally.
I have so much. All my kids, I'm like, why do I get it so much? With Mike, I had it 3 times. I'm like, oh, Lord.
I was a milk factory.
Oh.
And I had mastitis so many times.
Oh, man.
And
girl.
just hearing the word made me hurt.
I feel like I'm like, am I still lactating? Like when I talk about it, like what is happening? This is not good.
Oh dear.
Oh, I know.
So you had 3 kids in 5 years. Am I doing the math right?
Yeah, 3 kids in 5 years. Exactly. Yeah.
So what has Miles been like as an older brother?
Mm-hmm.
Mariah been like as a middle child? How has that all played out?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. No, it's a great question. Miles is my grounding, calming presence, like chill in a way. He's the oldest, but he has a little bit of my anxiety. Like we call him Safety Sam because he's like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Like he's like telling his siblings, like, don't jump off the refrigerator, which I'm telling you, my 2-year-old is wild, so it's funny. So he's like, but he's just chill. Like he's got that energy and he's a good big brother, very good big brother. Mariah is that, I don't like to say typical middle child, but so Miles had some medical challenges, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later, that really took away a lot of the attention from Mariah when she was at her prime, when she was at 2 to 4 years old. And so it was kind of that connective developmental stage of where we had so much focus on Miles because of his medical conditions. I think she got a little bit of that connection depletion. And so I made it my job to really fill that in over the last 2 years. And it's been 1.5 years now. And it's made a huge difference. And she is very creative and expressive and big emotions. And it's her way or the highway. And she tells her older brother and her younger brother, so she's that girl, that spunky girly girl. And I love it. And Mike is, everybody used to say, about Miles, boys play this way and girls play this way, and I'm like, I don't really see that. I don't know if that's true because Miles never was like the crazy boy that did all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. Is that really true? And then I had Micah and I was like, oh, I get it. I get it. When all the boys are crazy playing football and kicking soccer and jumping and wrestling, and then the girls are coloring and painting and doing arts and quiet. And I'm like, I get it. He's my wild one.
Oh, wow. And how did your parenting style, I mean, you had them so close together, but how did your parenting style have to adjust for each child?
I knew that I would probably have to raise them differently in a sense of how you communicate with them mentally, emotionally, physically. I think that each one has their certain ways that they receive and accept certain, not necessarily discipline, but just boundaries, right? And so my son has always, like I said, my oldest son, Miles, has always been a relatively rule follower and, wanting to make sure that he's doing things right. And education comes very easy to him. And so I was pretty focused on creating a very kind child with emotional resilience, right? That could feel confident in expressing his feelings and express his feelings through words or other ways. And if he had these big feelings, what we would do to help him through it. We would do angry chalk when he was angry, or we would stomp like a dinosaur when he was mad, or we'd throw his stuffies if he was mad. So I always was very good at coming up with outlets for him. And when Mariah came along, again, we kind of missed the boat a little bit with a lot of his medical conditions going on. And then I had to kind of go back and redo that. But she's super sensitive to to constructive criticism and to boundaries. So, and she wants to know why you say no. Miles is kind of like, oh, whatever, mom said no, and goes on his way, and she's like, but she wants to know why, like, what is the reason, So I realize I have to say, well, mommy doesn't want you to have another piece of candy tonight because this is a sometimes food, not an all day food, and you already had some, and your teeth and your body responds with the sugar. I'm a very nursey person, so I always tell them the physiological symptoms, and I'm very scientific behind it. And so and then Micah needs a little bit firmer boundaries because he's like, I'm gonna go do what I want whether you like it or not. So it's really interesting how you actually do have to parent them a little bit differently, what's best for them.
Yeah, that is so interesting. So let's talk then about Miles's medical situation. What happened? How did you come to discover it? All of that.
He was a very healthy boy, born term, no issues. Like I said, very extremely intelligent and always scoring high on his not exams, but they do like STAR testing in preschool and VPK and stuff like that. And when he was 4, all of a sudden out of nowhere, he had a seizure. And we were told that it was a febrile seizure, but something didn't sit right with me. And I had a feeling that I was like, he didn't really have a fever and he wasn't sick. So I don't understand. And it started with, I have a really bad headache and a stomach ache. And then he threw up everywhere and then went into seizure. And so we were like, okay, well, we'll keep an eye on it. And then 3 months later, same thing happened. And what essentially he was diagnosed with was epilepsy. So he started to continuously have these seizures, and they were getting closer together and stronger, and going on different medications and trying to find a cause and figure it out and catch them, on scans. And it was a 2-year process of, well, this came out of nowhere and why. And again, I'm a nurse, so I want to always find the cause and the reason and the answer. And it ended up, after many different neurologists, we found one that finally saw the problem on his MRI, and he had a brain lesion in one of his lobes in his MRI. And he's like, it's right here. It's very hard to see. It was missed by 3 other neurologists. And he said, we're going to keep an eye on it, but probably he's going to need brain surgery. And I'm like, what? This is all happening so fast. And my husband and I lived in this fight or flight state of like, when is the next seizure coming? When is the next seizure coming? Just never felt like I could relax. If he ever said, even if he got a little bit sick, I'm like, oh my God, he's going to have a seizure. And I'm like staring at him like, are you okay? Are you okay? And he's, Mom, so it was a tough challenge to, and I was pregnant, we had gotten pregnant during this time. I was pregnant and I had a newborn, all in this same situation. So we decided, based on the medical condition, and that he did need brain surgery. And on May 22nd of last year, he had brain surgery. They removed his full temporal lobe on his left side. It was all the emotions and all the roller coasters. And it was tough, but I can say we have weaned him completely off his medication as of August, and he has not had one seizure, knock on wood. And we really think it saved his life. The doctors believe that, and it's amazing and a blessing and a miracle. And all through that, I had this newborn that I was breastfeeding and carrying to the hospital every day, and it was a lot and challenging. And so that's why I needed to rebuild that connection with my daughter and reteach Miles some emotional resilience again, because he lost some of that, and the medications always made him feel pretty terrible. And he's back, like, his teachers, he had a first grade teacher, and his first grade teachers were his same second grade teachers because they loop. And they had him in first grade right after he had the brain surgery and on medicine. And now in second grade, he's off the medicine, and they're like, wow, like, he is a completely different kid. I'm like, this is the kid that I had my whole life until all this happened. And now you get to see him. He's amazing in himself and just silly and happy. And, I got my son back. So it's been an insane roller coaster, and needless to say. And here I am to talk about it,
Yeah. So I have a nephew who is epileptic, and at 4 years old, he had his first seizure. When you say Miles had a seizure, was it like the body shaking? Was it, what is it called when the eyes freeze?
Yes. Yeah. Like they get in this kind of catatonic state where they just, stare off. Yeah. Yeah, so his would always start with like a lip smacking or a finger smacking, and his was mostly right-sided. And he would go into a full tonic-clonic seizure, like shaking
Oh yeah,
on the
yeah,
left, on the right side, and he would foam
yeah.
at the mouth, and he would turn blue, and he would, it was a whole thing. It was like all of it, and with the medications controlled a lot of it, and so he only had probably, I would say, 10 big seizures that we had to call. We had to call 911 for probably six of them. And then the other ones were actually in the hospital, but he would get little ones like every 10 days. And it would just be kind of like, he would tell me the nightmares are coming because he would know when it was coming. And I would hold him and he would kind of like stare and he would lip smack and he couldn't talk. And then like it would be gone in a minute to 30 seconds. And then he'd feel tired and he'd come back. And that's kind of how it would show with the medicine.
Did they say when they found the lesion, did they say anything like he's had this since birth and it's just now activating or triggering these, or did they talk about that at all?
Yeah, and they did. And the funny thing is that you always blame yourself as a mom for anything that happens to your kid. So initially I'm like, oh, it was something I ate or drank or did, this, because they said to me he was born with this. This was a dysplasia in his brain, which means basically the cells were not lined up correctly. They were all jumbled and they should have been layered nicely. And he was born with this, and and you never know when the seizures are going to show up. It's called cortical dysplasia. And I know somebody that went through the exact same surgery as Miles, the exact same everything, and he was 17 when it showed up, right? So they say you just never know whenever it gets triggered in the brain or the brain grows to a certain extent, and you just never know. And so it was just there the whole time since he was birthed. It developed in utero, and then he started at 4, and that's what they explained it as.
Yeah. Oh wow, this hits a little closer to home. So much I want to ask you now.
Yeah.
So your son had brain surgery.
Mm-hmm.
You have these 2 littles.
Mm-hmm.
How did you hold your mental presence to be there for all of your children and your husband and your job? And were you in ultimate nurse mode, essentially caring for the recovery of your son?
I had to quit my bedside job, my nursing job, in the OBGYN office because I just physically couldn't come back to work after having Micah, and mentally. So, I was like, I'm going to take maternity leave. Again, probably 6 months is usually what I take. And then I knew that he was going to have brain surgery and the seizures were just getting worse. And and I would have to go to school and pick him up like 2 or 3 times a week. And I was going to all these doctor's appointments, and it just wasn't physically and mentally feasible for me to actually go to a job anymore. And so I quit what I knew, I worked so hard to get my license, and so I had to quit. And I always thought, how am I going to reinvent myself, what I'm going to do? Because I'm a person that likes to be motivated, and I like to work, and I like to bring income in. Not that I need to bring income in, but I like to feel like I'm producing in that way. Sure. Even though now my brain is actually switching, that I'm like here to mother and raise my kids. And that is my sole purpose, even though I still work now. So I created my own business on the side, working from home. And I also wrote the children's book that we'll talk about later, for the Miles's children's book, and then more books are coming. So I started kind of just reinventing myself and showing up for me and my passion in a different way of helping other people. But I had to take a huge, huge step back and put boundaries up. And I really had to go inward and focus on my kids and, our husband, obviously, and our relationship building as well. And that's when I kind of tuned into Mariah was having a lot of these outbursts and emotional challenges and fear. Like she wouldn't even go into her school, or she wouldn't go to gymnastics. All these things were coming up with separation, anxiety. And I'm like, okay, this is why. I knew why. So I just had to really go inward and learn what do you need? Like, what does she need? And then what does the baby need? And the babies are pretty simple at this age: connection and feeding and play, so that made it easier. And Micah, I always say that Micah was my healing baby because I had so much trauma with Miles and the postpartum. And then Mariah was actually a really tough baby. She had severe reflux, and she she weaned off the breast at 5 months and I exclusively, there's a lot going on. And so Micah came
Yeah.
along and he was just this like little cool, chill baby. And he was just my healing baby. And I was able to really, tune into that and go inward a lot. So I think that I did a lot of the work, self-work, and over the years, and have really been thankful that I've been able to do that, because that's how it helped me reconnect to every single one of my kids and my children. And now I'm able to help other people too.
Mm-hmm. Isn't Constance's story so amazing? I love this. I love it so much, and I hope you're loving it too. Please be sure to leave a thumbs up or a 5-star review, but also please be sure to share this episode with another mom who could use encouragement and inspiration right now. This is one they are not going to want to miss. And now let's get back to my conversation with Constance Lewis. When you received Miles's diagnosis, having the medical background that you do, did you feel like, okay, we just have to face this head on and everything has a practical road to treatment? Did you seek support groups or things like that? What was that journey like?
Great question. And to answer your other question too about did I go into nurse mode, it's so funny that I'm so calm and collected and can just jump right into an emergency situation if it happens when it's not my kid.
Yeah.
Like when I have this slight panic when my kid gets hurt or something happens to them. And I'm like, Andre, my husband, he's like, okay. And he's the very practical one in that sense. And he's medical too. He's a pediatric dentist. So he's very medical too. But he's like, well, we're going to look at the situation and we're going to, I'm like, but call 911. What I mean? It's like, oh my gosh, where's my nurse? But it's so different for me. For my kids, it's so wild. I mean, I've been in crazy situations. I have had to see lots of very crazy things to people medically, and it's just wild how you just flip that switch. So to answer that part of your question, yes. And what was the other question? I forgot now. Sorry. Oh, support groups.
Yeah.
So when Miles had his diagnosis, I'm a type of person where I'm like, let's just get it done. Who's the next doctor? Who do I need to talk to? Where's the next appointment? And I like research. Like I would show up to, oh my gosh, the doctors probably think I'm so annoying because, when people did this to me, I wouldn't think that, but I'm like, oh, here they come with their notebook full of, research studies, and I would be that one coming in. I'm like, okay, 70% and 20% and 50%. And this is the drug and that's the drug. And I'm, and I'm very intuitive with my children's, the way they respond to medications in their body and what they need. And I'm always listening and trying to figure it out. And so I think that they were like, oh, here comes Constance with her notebook, and so I would just go into, this is what I think, and this is what I want. And they were really good. They're like, listen, this is this, statistics, but if you feel like this, and they were so good with me on that, which I really appreciate the doctors in the hospital. So I think that my advice for moms and dads is that you have to find a hospital and a doctor that you truly trust and you feel like you can challenge them, but they will come back supportively and give you information. And B, I did go on Facebook and find the pediatric neurosurgery group that I joined. And although sometimes a little bit scary, some of the things and the things that were happening to kids, I just put my blinders on and I put in searched what exactly was happening to Miles and just read like the different medication side effects of this one, or if they had the surgery, what was their side effects, so I kind of just honed in on that. And and honestly, even the things that were like, well, my son still has to have another surgery, or my daughter, it made me worried a little bit, but I also was super confident in my intuition of knowing like, okay, we're going to go do this. I trust the doctors. I trust the intuition of what we're supposed to do, and what's going to happen is going to happen. So.
Yeah. Well, and praise God for his results and recovery. But what have been the ramifications of it since that you have still had to work through?
Oh man. I mean, I have so much PTSD from the seizures. I think like you see your child like laying there suffering, like pale, blue, shaking, and all the EMTs are running around, and like essentially normally I would jump in and do this because that's my job, right? But here I'm the parent, so I'm watching, and he's just like staring, and it's like you lose your child, in a sense of they're physically still there, but mentally they're obviously not. And that's, you're just like standing there like helpless, you know, super
Mm-hmm.
helpless. And you just feel like this trauma from it. I think it just eats at your core. And I think that over time, it takes a long time to build, to heal is really the right word, that trauma. And I don't know if you ever truly, it feels sometimes like a dream now, you know, a little bit, because we're kind of, I'm like, should sometimes I question if I should release and let go and trust that it's all better and fixed. You know, I'm thinking I'm being tricked. Is there going to be another seizure? And I'm like, I just think there's not going to be one coming, and we fix this situation, and then all of a sudden, bam, I'm going to get sideswiped. You know, so I think that there's that inner fear still, and I just think that may sit for a long time. You know, who knows? Everybody's different of how long that may take time to go away, and now it's getting better. But even the other day, he came into the bed and he was like, I have a headache and my stomach hurts. And those are his two top signs before seizure. And immediately, this just happened like 2 months ago. And I'm like, it's dark. It's like, I don't know, 2 a.m. I like turn on the lights. I'm staring at his face. I'm like holding him, like looking in his eyes and like looking in his pupils. And I'm like, do you feel your hands? Can you see me? Do you see the nightmares? Are you seeing anything? You know, I'm like this crazy person. And Andre's like waking up in this bright light. And what is happening, you know? But it's just that trauma. Like it's that PTSD that's like comes back like, oh my God, I got to be ready. Where's my rescue medicine? Where's 911? You know, and I think, and so I think it's just time, and just working through that. You know, like I meditate every night, and I've been able to release a lot of that fear and that PTSD through meditation, but it's still there. I think it's always going to be a little bit there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's probably just a muscle memory response.
It is. Yeah.
At this point, especially. And so how is Miles dealing with it? Does he notice a big difference in himself, in his life?
I think he does. And it's interesting because I feel like he felt like he was living an alternate reality, and it wasn't his body. He's a very intellectually aware kid. Just for instance, when he was 2 years old, still in a crib, not even 2.5, but 2, he was wiggling around in the bed. It's nighttime. And I'm like, buddy, take a deep breath. You know, you got to go to sleep. And he's like, Mom, at night, my body sleeps, but my brain is nocturnal. And I'm like, what? So he like thinks, he's a constant thinker. He's always doing math in his head, and he's always thinking of ways to build things. And he's a thinker. And so for him to explain that to me at 2, I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. You know, so I think that he had a lot of mistrust in his body while on the medication and having the seizures. And we're starting to, and he still has that a little bit, but we're starting to see that heal pretty fast. You know, kids heal so much faster and they're so much more resilient, right? But we took him to therapy and we dealt with a lot of things, and he holds it in like control thing now because he couldn't control his body and couldn't control the seizures. Now it's a control thing for him. So he tries to control things in his life. So we go to therapy and we talk about like, what can you control and what can't you control, you know, and we put those in balloons. And so we've worked a lot on that, I think. And now he's starting to really trust his body more. And it's beautiful to see, but I think he's still building that confidence up, and he'll look back and he's like, wow, like I remember how I wanted to play baseball, and I would stand up there and I would hold the bat and I couldn't swing. Like my mind was telling my body to swing, but my body wouldn't swing. And I was back there like, swing the bat, Miles. Like, why are you swinging? Like, you know, being a good mom, but supportive. Like, what is funny? Like, swing the bat. But you've done this a million times, you know what? But and then when he told me that, I'm like, mind blown. Oh my gosh, buddy. I didn't even realize, like, you know, so it's these things that you don't think about or realize. And, you know, and it's wild, but he's finding his way, and he's finding himself and his trust in his body again. And we're just kind of working on the control part now.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, adults have that issue. I have that issue. So I'm like, I don't know, buddy. I have control issues too. We'll work on it together.
Yeah. Yeah. So where in all of this, Constance, did you find inspiration and coherency and time to write a children's book? What is that?
This is wild. This story is wild. I feel like that's why I totally believe in intuition and guided by angels or God or creator or universe or whoever you believe in, because I knew that there was something good to come out of this. Like because I'm a helper in nature. I always want to help and heal, right? I'm a healer in nature and I'm an empath. And I knew that this tragic thing that happened and now has gotten better, there's a reason, and there has to be good to come out of it on my side. Like, how can I give back to what I feel like I've been given my son's life back, right? And so I never thought I would write a children's book in my entire life. And I say this all the time, and I still can't even believe that I have a children's book on Amazon. I'm like, what? Really? Like, it's still weird to me. It's very weird. And like imposter syndrome kind of in a way, but not really. It's just interesting. And so one night I'm just laying in bed. Oh no, first I had a dream. So I had a dream that I wrote a children's book about Miles. And I woke up, and I have very vivid dreams, and a lot of my dreams in the future actually come true in a way, not like fully, but just like bits and pieces.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh, that was really weird, babe. I had a dream that I wrote a children's book about Miles and his journey. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. Are you? And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think I'm writing a book. I don't know. You know, it was weird. And then I'm like, I don't even know what I would write about. I mean, I know it would be about Miles and his journey, but what? And so one night I'm just, this is when I'm getting into my meditation and then do my bedtime routine. And I'm laying in the bed and I look at him and I like grab my phone and I just start like typing out. And he said, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm writing the book. And he said, what book? I'm like, the children's book, Miles's children's book. And he's like, what do you mean? And in one night, I wrote the whole book in one night. Like, I just wrote it. And it's a children's book, so it's not very long. And
Chapter 12.
Chapter 12. And I'm up till 5 a.m. No, I'm just kidding. I know, right? It's like, Constance, don't be dramatic. You were up for an hour. Right? And I'm like, he's like, oh, okay, great. What is it about? I'm like, superheroes and colors and capes. And he's like, that's actually a really good idea, because he's obsessed with superheroes and he wears capes all the time, blah, blah. I'm like, I know. And then I'm not a very good, I wouldn't consider myself a good writer. And, I always grew up and I wasn't a writer. I always struggled in spelling and writing. And my teachers were like, she can't spell. She's a beautiful writer, but she can't spell. And her handwriting looks terrible. You know what I mean? The whole thing. And so I'm like, I need help rhyming this. And Andre said, okay, because he's very good at rhyming and he's very articulate. And I said, I want it to rhyme. And he's like, why? I'm like, he's like, not all children's books rhyme. I'm like, no, I want it to rhyme. It has to rhyme. Rhyming children's books are my favorite. Like, we have tons of books in our house. We've been reading books to our babies since they were like born. We are every night our children's get books, we love them. And he's like, all right. So, the next day he's helping me rhyme the whole thing and trying to figure out what words go with what. And then we found an illustrator, and 8 months later we had a book, and it's wild, but I've already had so many people reach out to me and tell me that Miles's story, his resilience, and this book has really brought them so much love, comfort, and confidence. And it's so special, it's just, I'm helping people again in that way.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's wild. And then I have more. And then somebody said to me, well, you have 2 other kids. You can't just write a book about Miles. And I'm like, I guess so. So I wrote Mariah's book in one night, and I wrote Micah's book in one night. And hers is about the social anxiety and the shyness, because that's what she dealt with. And so hers is about that, and it's hopefully coming out in February. And Micah's is just about, he can get angry very fast, and he kind of has, like big emotions in that sense. And so it's kind of, it's more of a younger book, but it's about, the stomp it out and the squeeze your lovey, just kind of a younger book. So, and then another one. So I'm coming out with another book that I've already almost finished. It's called Mommies Have Big Feelings Too. And it's basically a book written in first person from my kids, explaining how the different emotions that mommies get when they feel certain ways. And this is how it might show up in a mommy's body, but no matter what, they still love you. So.
What?
Yeah.
You have filled an entire shelf in 4 days.
I know. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
Thank you. It's just, like I said, I'm just getting downloads, and it comes and I do it. And it's amazing. It's amazing.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How does Miles feel about this book about him?
So he's so funny. He's like, so Mariah likes, even though she's shy, she likes being on stage, and she's a dancer in gymnastics, and she dresses up, and she's very full of life. And Miles is kind of like, Mom, I'm not doing that. I'm not going on stage. I'm not talking in videos. You know, he's very kind of, introverted in a way like that. And we went to a book signing recently, and he loves this book. He reads it. He's like, yeah, this is me in here, and I'm helping people. I'm like, yeah, you are. And he really does feel very, proud for that. And we went to a book signing, our first book signing at Books A Million a couple weekends ago. And he's like signing he's like, Mom, I got to keep signing these books. I'm like, well, yeah, these people are here to see you. And he's like, love Miles. He's like, it's only, I think he only ended up like signing 24 books or something. And he's like, Mom, am I done signing books and taking pictures with all these people? And I'm like, yes, honey, you don't have to do it. I don't force him to do it, but it's like, but he's very proud. And I went to read the book to his school, and he's like, look at my book, and this is my page. And he's telling about all the characters and why he did this and why it's that. And it's, he's proud. You can tell he's proud.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Did he wear a cape to the book signing?
Yeah, we all did.
Oh, you all did?
Yeah, I have pictures. I should send them to you. Yeah, we all wore capes. And we actually, if you purchased a book at the book signing, Miles signed it, and then you got a free cape and a mask to go with it. So we added that as a gift.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it was fun. I felt really bad because we're at Books A Million, and it's on a Saturday, and it's like you have 24 kids running around with capes on this bookstore. And I'm like, sorry to anyone who's coming in here to have a relaxing Saturday at Books A Million. Like, that is not happening. I mean, they were running amok, and I'm like, sorry. I mean, they were fine. They're like, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. And I was like, oh man, come another day.
Oh my goodness. So now that these books have produced themselves from your brain and hand, do you think that writing more, and maybe not children's books, maybe different kinds of books, are on the docket for you?
Man, so I always have thought this. So I'm a co-author in 2 other books currently, and this is kind of how it started. So I have a friend that created a book called Infertility. I actually have it behind me. It's Infertility Success, and it's a book about hope and healing. And so each person has a chapter in this book. So I wrote a chapter about my infertility story and what we went through to get Miles. And it's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother podcast, but my Lord. So yeah, so I already had written a chapter in a book, and they're like, oh, you're an author. And I'm like, wow, that's great. And then, the lady that authored the whole book, she was the author of the whole book. And she's like, you really are good at writing, and because you express your emotions in your writing, and your feelings, you can feel it. I had to have a lot of editing done because, again, I'm not the best writer, but it was fun, and I liked it. And then she came out with it's a series of books, and then the series is postpartum. It's basically Infertility Success to Postpartum Mess is what that book was called. So I have a chapter in that book about how I went through infertility, and then it led into my postpartum depression and anxiety, and how I got through it and what helped me. And so, I've dabbled in that a little bit, and I've always thought about writing some sort of, I don't know if I would write a bibliography documentary type book, or if it would be more of like a help book for parents, what to do in this situation and what I did help my family, so it's maybe that's a great question. It's a maybe, I think.
Okay, I'll take a maybe, because I was going to push you to, of course, but I'll take a maybe.
Yeah, I know. I really want to. I just feel like I need to have the right information to put in it, because I want people to pick up my book and think, wow, this really helped me. I want it to help people. I don't want it to just be like, blah, 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 and do this, and blah, 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 and do this, and it'd be really unrealistic. Like, I want it to be something super realistic that people can actually implement in their insanely busy lives that we live in today. And so I think that the download for that will come. I just need to get past these other little projects.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow, Constance. Yeah, okay.
I know.
So regrouping my questions now, when you sit down in the evening with your kids.
Yeah.
And, maybe it's a bedtime routine, or whatever it is, what is the primary thing that just fills your heart, fills your soul in those moments looking at your 3 kids?
I love that question. I love it. I love bedtime because we have our routines, and my husband and I kind of split who we put down every night. Like I'll put whoever's putting Micah down, the baby, will put Miles down, and then, the opposite, we'll put Mariah, and then we switch each night. And it is such a blessing to be one-on-one with each child. And I really go into that moment and put myself in that moment. I'm super conscious of that moment without distraction and my distractive thoughts and what went wrong in the day. And I just really focus on that child and giving them love, unconditional love, and snuggles and hugs and kisses and laughs while I'm in that moment with them. And I look into their eyes. My favorite part is looking into their eyes, because I really truly feel like I can see their soul and their happiness and their innocence and their beauty. And so every night I really try hard to kind of just peer into their soul through their eyes, and not in a creepy way, but a good way, and like peering into your soul. And it'll be like, it's Halloween. You can edit that part out. But yeah, so I am also a pediatric sleep consultant out of all the other things I do. So one of my big recommendations is connection, especially at bedtime. And if you just fill their cup up, it will fill your own cup up. I really focus on reading and storytelling and love and cuddles and touch and kisses if that's what they want. Sometimes Mariah's like, "Ma, I don't want you to hug me tonight." I'm like, "Perfect, great. How do you want to say goodnight to mommy?" Things like that. But just really that special one-on-one time with them really makes me feel like, okay, I am a good mom. I am doing a good job today. And they love me so much, and I am their world, and I need to do whatever I can to make them feel the same way that they make me feel, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great answer. And I have so enjoyed this conversation. And I love the fact that you told this vulnerable, authentic story about your motherhood. And then, oh, by the way, here's this whole chapter that we haven't even gone into or talked about yet, because I love that for many reasons. First of all, please, standing invitation to come back and tell that story.
Absolutely, yeah.
But secondly, because the whole point of this podcast, of the Motherhood Experience, is to have moms come on, share their unique story. And that illustrates every mom has a story. And just because we hear part of it doesn't mean we get the whole picture. And every mom that you interact with, if they tell you things that you relate with, if they tell you things that maybe you haven't experienced, but you can still appreciate them sharing with you, it's so much more than that one interaction. These podcast episodes are so much more than these 45 or 50-minute stories, these windows that we get glimpses into. And I appreciate that so much, Constance.
Same. I think it's beautiful what you're doing. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to have had you as a guest. Please tell people where they can find you, how they can get a hold of the books, plural.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. I'm going to keep going. Everybody says, "When do you find time to sleep?" I'm like, "Oh, I get my sleep. I'm methodical about that, girl." So we have a website. It's www.colorfulcapesofeelings.com. And all of the information is on there, literally everything about our story and the books and everything is on there. I have blogs that I write on there for parents. And there's actually teacher resources, caregiver resource. There's a bunch of good stuff. So we have an Instagram, and it's called colorful_feelings.books. Okay. And you can find information on there about Miles' story and also on the website as well, too.
And do you have like a newsletter or anything people can sign up for?
Yeah. So if you go to the website, you can actually sign up for the newsletters, which are mostly blogs that I send out, updates, newsletters, things like that, mostly blogs, and put your information in. We capture an email, and then we send all those things to you. So every time I write a blog, you get the blog. If there's something up and coming, like when the next book is coming, it'll be on there. If we're going to do a couple other book signings coming up. Those are going to be certain places. So yes, that's all going to be on there. And we have an email. It's info@colorfulcapesofeelings.com as well if you have any questions. But you can get that on the website too.
Wonderful. Well, Constance, again, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. I hope that you will come back, share part 2 or part 1, I guess. Maybe the infertility would be part 1 and this is part 2. We'll get the prequel, maybe.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for coming and sharing with my audience. It's been a real thrill.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. To join our exclusive TME community, head over to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Be sure to follow the Motherhood Experience on Facebook or Instagram, and please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.